Well, good evening. I worry about you people. We get smoke. I fly airplanes. I was up tonight, and we get filtered sunsets from here. Although you sent us a nice one on Sunday night, one of the nicest sunsets I've seen in years. Just incredible. And so what I'd like to do tonight is talk about the Decoder Buddies. Jeff Bunza kind of put me up to this a while ago. I started playing with electronics when I was 14 or 15, and I built one of the
Hey, Nick, you've muted yourself if you didn't know that.
I think I may have done it.
Ah,
I'm trying to undo it, and there we go.
Okay. So I've been playing with electronics for a while. I've never really had a formal course in it. It's just been toying around, and I wanted to put lights in Atlas locomotives, and the JST connectors just didn't work, and so I started working on it just a couple years ago, and came up with a Decoder Buddy as a way to get a 21-pin decoder to give me a bunch of light. And I was lucky. It seemed to work for a lot of people, and myself too. I took a deep breath, and I ordered 1,000, and that 1,000 is long gone now. It was fairly worrisome to take that type of step, but it seems to have worked. So let's take a look at the Decoder Buddy now. If I can.
Let me see here.
Let's see. Hold on just a second. I might have it right here. How does that look? You starting to get something here?
Try it now, please.
Okay. Anything yet?
No, and it should be working now.
Let's try share screen one more time. There we go. I bet that gets closer.
There we go.
yeah.
And I'll open it up so I can see where I am. How's that, better?
Yes.
Okay. This is what I've come up with so far. We have the original Decoder Buddy, or second version of the original Decoder Buddy. Jeff and I have a person in common in Phoenix, Arizona, who makes them in the United States. We get our parts from China, and Daniel DeBeer puts them together for me. He helped me design the niceness of this one. Mine was definitely done by a hack, myself. He's lined up the resistors and the transistors nicely. The version 5 came out to help use all the outputs from the version the Loxon 5 decoders that had 12 outputs. The originally needed 8. And when Loxon moved up to 12, I up the number of outputs that we had on the Decoder Buddy. Since then, people have requested a smaller version for smaller locomotives, both steam and diesel. It just barely holds a decoder, and has the 3 outputs for the Loxon power packs. This is the current version 5 of the Soundtrax decoder and the Loxon decoder. It's essentially a 21-pin decoder holder. And one of the nice things that transpired was it has a detachable light board. So if you put LEDs into your shell and run the wires back carefully, I'll have a video here of how I make that happen. To the small connector board, then you can keep your chassis completely separated from the shell to work on either one. And then when you're ready to put it on the layout or put the two sections back together, you put the small connector board on this on the other side of the connector and put it in your locomotive, and off you go. This is original. It has 8 function outputs, all the same. They're all set to go straight into LEDs. The resistors are on board, so the current is correct for each of the outputs. This is a mini, again, with the soundtracks and the Loc sound decoder. I don't mean to demean anybody else. All the decoders look the same. It was just that the Loc sound and the soundtracks are the two big powers in the ring at the moment. I think probably TCS will come on, and Digitrax will catch up too eventually. What I wanted also was a piece that I could put into the locomotive and put the locomotive on the programming track. When I put it on the programming track, I can hear the sound immediately. I can see it move back and forth, but the lights, I had to leave the shell on top of the frame and get the small connector board to connect in. So what I did was I took the small connector board and put a dozen LEDs on it, and it works either with the 8 or the 12 pin 12-pin decoder buddies, so that you can see what lights are working, whether your headlights are working. If you've got ditch lights, you can see that they're working. And if you've got wagging ditch lights or Mars lights or any particular functions that are happening with the lights, you can see if they're happening in the right position, and also if they're happening at all. That gives you an idea of the size of the decoder buddies. This is one of as many as I could get onto the presentation tonight. One of the ready-to-run Athearn diesel locomotives has one set of leads connected to the trucks on the left or right side, and on this one, originally the truck set on the frame, and you just put a screw in the frame and brought it up into the whatever controller was for the motor, maybe directly into the motor, and that was all there was to it. As we got into DCC, it's a little bit more picky, so I took 2 wires to go down to the trucks on the other side and soldered them to the rivets that make that connect to the wheels and trucks. So it has a little bit better connection to the track. I also upgraded with the nickel silver wheel sets. This is an idea of what I worked with initially. This is a dual mode decoder from an Atlas locomotive. It's pretty long, certainly no sound in it. This is one of the Select Direct's Loc Sound 4 versions that was a major step forward, except to put it into an Atlas locomotive, I had to cut off those 4 tabs in front to allow it to fit. And that started to push me in the direction of wanting more outputs and better fit. So
Nick?
this, yes, sir.
Can you go to full screen and also go into the actual presentation mode? Your slides are kind of just in the center of the screen. They're a little small,
Um,
and we can't see any pointers.
let's see what I can do here.
You should be able to see, click on the slide up at the top there and go into the slideshow itself.
How's that, better? No, just change the screen.
Or down by your plus minus slider, there's something that looks like an old screen that they used to have in school. You click on that and it should make the picture the full screen. Nope, other side. So
I see what you're saying.
no,
How's that?
right, just exactly to the left of the 40% sign.
To,
Click on that.
okay. I did.
Huh. It doesn't seem to launch the slideshow on yours. How weird.
Try the full screen box at the upper right.
The full screen box at the upper right.
Next to the X, yeah.
How's that, better?
Yeah, now you can do that zoom, but that zoom at the bottom. Run the zoom slider over some.
No, go to slideshow up at the top. The
Under
top-
more?
No, slideshow. Slideshow, up at the top on the left. Over, and up. No,
And you're-
up. Keep going to the right. Keep
Slideshow.
going. Yeah, hit that. Then go to from
From
current,
current
slide.
slide.
Go to what again?
Hit that one that you're on.
How's that?
Do you have two screens?
I do have two screens.
I'm thinking it's showing up on the second screen.
Okay, let's try that.
So
You have to stop sharing and then start sharing again and pick the correct screen.
Okay, stop share. And
start the sharing again, and you may have to pick the screen that your presentation's on.
how's that?
Perfect. Drive
Thank you.
on.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks, Bert.
Someday these are still new to me. Okay, so those are the three sizes. That was one of the very original eight output decoder buddies, and this is how it fit into the Atlas QSI version of the GP40.
Basic definition, what is a Decoder Buddy supposed to do? What is its purpose? I'm not getting that.
Thanks, Doug. What the Decoder Buddy is it's a decoder holder. It holds a 21-pin decoder. 21-pin decoders were originated by Loc Sound, I believe, in Germany. And the NMRA, and they worked with the NMRA and developed a standard so that these this connector or header here holds a 21-pin decoder that Soundtrax has just released an 8 output version. Loc Sound has one, Digitrax has one, TCS has a 21-pin decoder, and even NCE has a non-sound 21-pin decoder. Any of the 21-pin decoders will fit here. This is a clear way so that it will fit here. And it's just essentially it's a decoder holder. That's all it is. You set, Doug?
He's good.
Okay. So, and that should show up here a little bit better shortly. This is a top view. This is the 21 pin part where the decoder is held, and this is where the small light board is held. I've had very good luck with Scale Sound System speakers. JT Burke is an audio engineer. If you need a recommendation from a speaker from me, he's right on the top of the list. This would be an original Atlas locomotive that took the Decoder Buddy, or the Decoder Buddy was actually designed around. These are 3 generations or 3 iterations of Atlas locomotives. This is the original dual mode, and it has the two clips for holding the dual mode decoder. This is the QSI version for the original decoder, and this is the newer version with a lock sound configuration, and it comes with either a lock sound decoder or a DC board, and their speaker configuration has changed. What's important here also is to see that, like the Athearn that I showed you before, there's 2 wires coming from the truck here. There's 2 wires coming from the truck in front. There's a black wire and a red wire that comes from the motor, and then 2 speaker wires. And that's pretty much what you get on the Decoder Buddy. You get all those wires that just go in nicely, easily, and neatly, leaving the rest of your wires and wiring for lighting. The lights in this locomotive probably include ditch lights and headlights, and eventually it'll get step lights and ground lights. And you can see that in the Jeeps, in the GP30s and GP40s, where you can remove the dynamic brake hatch, you can just set that that connector board for the shell right on top of the Decoder Buddy, and it makes it so that you can separate the shell from the frame. So if you want to work on a light or some weathering and you don't want to get powders into your motor, you can separate the shell. Or if you want to lubricate your motor, you can do that and separate the shell without getting oil and grease on the shell. The Decoder Buddy, I was lucky, it's fit into a lot of different locomotives. This happens to be Proto 2000 or Proto 1000, I'm not sure. It's an E7 or E8, I'm not sure of that either. I did it for a buddy of mine down just in Covington, Louisiana a couple winters ago, and that got him started. These are, I think, Proto 1000 locomotives. That's the original board, and this is a Decoder Buddy that's fit in. Again, you can see the lighting wires are waiting, but the motor wires are coming up in and attached, and the track wires are coming up in and attached, and the 2 motor wires are attached also. This is that same Athearn ready to run GP38 with a Decoder Buddy and a decoder set in it. And with the Athearns, it has kind of a decoder pocket under the dynamic brake hatch that has to be taken out, or dremeled around and removed to make enough room for the height of the decoder. But the installation becomes pretty pretty neat. This is an idea of what the small lighting board does for you. I've got looks like maybe a front light here and possibilities for ditch lights and maybe a cab light on, and I can see what's working, what's not working. If I had a speaker in, that'd be tested, and I can certainly catch the direction of the motor to see if that's correct. It's a little bit closer view of the same thing. And this is an idea. I've got another part of the presentation that I can go after to show you that this is the small connector board. And what I like to do is I like to connect all the red wires first. And after the red wires are connected, then I'll go in and take the black wires, which are connected to the function outputs, and attach those to each of the function outputs. The other thing I like to do is I like to keep all the function outputs as much the same as possible, so that when I'm diagnosing later on, I can remember or start to remember, or at least have a list of where I expect to find, say, a front ditch light on A3 or front ditch light on A1 if it's a wigwag situation. One guy I found, and I've been working with closely in terms of installations, if you haven't started doing DCC conversions or upgrades from DC, Larry Linger, if you search for solo contracting on YouTube, does an absolutely superb job on showing technique, how to solder, how to plan an installation. He gets himself into a little bit of trouble and digs himself out. So he's good at the troubleshooting process also. And if you want to start doing one of these and you need some help, I'd be more than happy to help also. How are we doing for time here?
Well, you still got at least 6 minutes before you hit the half-an-hour mark.
Okay. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to see if I can find this presentation and run through it quickly. This is about 10 minutes more.
That's fine.
Okay, what we have here is some Walters. Are you seeing that, or have I got to reshare again?
You have to reshare.
Okay. Piece of plastic. Let's see if I can get this to stop. What I'm going to do next. Okay, so I've got to share screen is stop. Okay, share screen again. I want screen 2. I went back to Zoom. Am I still with you guys?
Your screen is, but it's the one that has the NixTrainz marketing folder on it. There we go.
So have you got that now?
Wire routing and small connector board. Yes.
Okay. And start to route these wires. What these are, to route the wires, what I'll do, LEDs directly from China. They're probably 0603s with wire leads on them. An LED down in there. Just want to touch that blue. That's all there is to that. I'm not going to back that up. There, red wire coming out here. I'm using Walther's glue. Just put a dab of that glue right there. It's set. Hold that there. It sets up very quickly and keeps those wires where they're supposed to be pretty nicely. course. Which one to use? Life isn't perfect. Glue off the edge. There we go. And then another little bit right here. Should be about enough to hold that in.
So while we're watching this, Nick, since you're working with LEDs, I believe the Decoder Buddy has resistors, or some versions do, some versions don't. Can you explain that, please?
Sure. The output on all the decoders, when they are outputting, is 12 volts. The 21-pin decoders in general don't have resistors. So I put resistors on the Decoder Buddy. Wires up through here. There are two major types of resistors. Lokes sound like to put 2.2K resistors in, which is a little bit conservative. It gives you a little bit less light, but a little bit longer life. The Soundtracks and the rest of the people like 1K resistors, which are fine. People have even come in and asked for custom resistors. The Decoder Buddy 5s have 2.2Ks. I'll do custom resistors for the same price. All you have to do is get to me through the website, and I can put 820, 750 ohm resistors and into the Decoder Buddies. And if you have resistors that are already
Another case of
in the lights inline, like Al Mayo puts resistors in line with his LEDs, then I can supply Decoder Buddies with 0 ohm resistors, and so that you only have the 820 ohm that he comes, his LEDs come with. So to summarize, the standard version 5s have 2.2K.
That's just
The 8 outputs,
nice.
if you're buying them from a distributor, will probably have either 2.2K or 1K. If it's not labeled, it'll be 2.2K. If you want 1K, right now I'm the place to get those. And in the minis,
Back again.
I offer either 2.2K radials or 1K SMD resistors that are on board. Axial resistors are well, you can see in my hand. You just splice one in line, and if they're on board the Decoder Buddy, then you don't have to worry about it. You just solder onto that small connector board. All set, Jeff?
Yep.
Found a 12 gauge wire. Find it's just hard to deal with.
So is this just showing LED installation and then soldering them onto the light board?
Yep, that's all we're doing here.
So the mini Decoder Buddy, How many outputs does it have?
It has four outputs for the time being, and if you want to put resistors on it, I think you can get 4 more outputs off the Loc sound decoder. Right off the board. And I'm not sure, I don't think the Soundtrax has the extra pads for that.
Any plans for other versions of the Decoder Buddy?
Yes, sir. Right now, I just about got Loc Sound's mini or micro is what they call it, micro version 5. And what that'll do is it'll cut down on the height of the Decoder Buddy and the mini. It'll make it just a little bit smaller and offer 2 more, I think 2 more outputs. I think I'll be able to pull 8 out of that pretty easily.
Any thoughts of making one that would clip on to the universal clips that are in so many manufacturers these days?
Actually, thank you. With those universal clips, what I've been doing is I've been just taking a pair of flush cutters and cutting the clips off those, and that Walther's glue that I'm using right there. On this slide right here, you can see right there where the light is on. So that's how I'm testing. I've taken a wire out of here off the U plus, and now I can see which black wire is going to which terminal there. Excuse me. Jeff, I'm sorry. What question was I trying to answer again?
The universal board.
The universal board. I cut the two ears off the top of that, and I'll use some more of that Walther's glue. Is really good stuff. I don't think I'd pick the locomotive up totally with or the frame and the motor and everything with that. The Decoder Buddy with just a couple dabs of Walther's glue on the flattened piece of the universal connector, just seems to work very fine. And then you just tie your track leads in and your motor leads in, and you're all set to go again.
Okay. All right.
One thing I saw that was interesting this week is RailPro. Somebody taken a RailPro unit and tied a Decoder Buddy into the middle of it. And I haven't seen it to really understand the whole process yet into either a decoder or use the Decoder Buddy for subsequent processing. Whether the RailPro had 12-volt outputs for the lights or what was happening there, I wasn't quite sure. But
It does.
I was pleased to see RailPro and being able to be tied into all that.
RailPro locomotive modules have normally the 9-pin JST type connector.
Okay.
So they probably ran an adapter from that to the 21-pin, which I know somebody, possibly Soundtrax, makes.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So what else is on this video?
I think I solder one more joint, and I can kill it right here. What I'm doing here is I'm dropping that wire right through that board, and oh, actually maybe I can do that. I can speed it up a little bit. I can. The last thing I wanted to show you was that there are wires sticking out of the bottom here, and I just go after it with the flush cutters and smooth it up, and that's the end of the job.
So the light test board, that's a separate product, correct?
It is a separate product.
Okay. And of course it doesn't work with the Mini because the Mini doesn't have the extra pad.
That's correct. That's correct. It doesn't have the connector for the small connector board. So it's only for the version 5 in the original 8 output version. Yep.
Okay. So tell us where we can get these and how we can contact you.
Thanks. If you look, if you Google Decoder Buddy, that's a good place to start. My contact information is in there. A number of distributors have taken on the Decoder Buddy, so that when you order your decoder, you probably get a better price from the internet than what I have to sell them for on my website. So that'd be a good place to go and look.
Okay. Burr asked from the video, what gauge wire was that was attached to those LEDs that you were soldering?
Ooh, that's a good question. It comes with it. I would say it has to be 30, maybe 32 gauge. I don't think it's as large as 28. It's just really, really nice fine wire. And when I cut that off, I save it in a pile, and I've got a box of it. I'll tell you that I use, if he's still in business, ELEC Doctor on eBay from China, if you're willing to wait for him. And there's another distributor there, CH something, that will probably sell the same. I prefer 0603s for headlights and ditch lights. And most everything else. If I'm going to light up a number board or something like that, I use 5730s, all warm whites. And I kind of went crazy a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago. I said it'd be awful nice to have 0201s in warm white. So I went on a campaign, and I've now just received a reel of 5,000 0201, really tiny. If you're into N scale, then that's what you'd use for a headlight or a ditch light. And I've been wiring those onto 38 and 40 gauge wire. And I've also put them into ditch lights, and not ditch lights, but ground lights and step lights. The fixtures for those are pretty standard. If you look at the new locomotives, the Athearn ones, the Genesis SD70 Aces, I chopped theirs off and put mine in, and they're working. They're actually working ditch, working ground lights and working step lights, and they're on the website also.
Okay, Mike's asking, where did you get the flux dispenser syringe that was in the video?
The flux that was given to me. That was a Kester flux. I forget the number, and it looked like it came in that it came in that little bottle. It's a nice. It worked well.
I think I've gotten similar stuff at Amazon, so you just
Yep.
have to look for it.
Yep. The other thing, the other flux I like a lot for a paste flux. It isn't cheap, but I like Chip Quick for a paste flux. They're nice places for liquid flux, but if you really want to control where you put in the flux, the paste flux is nice.
Okay, anything else? If anybody would like to ask a question, feel free to just type it in the chat and I'll pass it along. I think that's all the questions we're going to get for you, Nick.
Well, that's great. I really appreciate being able to be here with all you people tonight. Thank you very much for being with me.
All right. So we're going to go from Decoder Buddies to weathering roofs. At least I think that's what Greg Baker has on tap. So
Who knows? Who knows? All right, let's see. Get myself situated. On with the show, as it were. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about weathering some roofs here. Get that out of the way.
please introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, hey, Greg Baker, also known as Mountain Goat Greg. Originally from Eugene, moved around a bunch. Back up here in Portland now. Work for the local transit agency, as it were. And yeah, model in HO scale. Model the Spokane, Portland, and Seattle, and the Great Northern Railways. And yeah, keep myself pretty busy with, 400 projects like everybody else. So last Zoom call, somebody asked about one of the roofs I had on one of my structures that I built. And this is kind of the style of roof that was in question. This is just a basic plastic roof from Walthers. So this is actually the little warehouse kit, an extra piece of the roof from it. So we'll start with that because that was the kind of impetus of all of this. But as you can see, you can kind of take this technique and go, this is kind of a medium, beginning of the rust. And it's a little heavier there. And there's what happens when you leave stuff out in Oregon too long. So this is all achieved with pretty much paints and a hobby knife. So I start out with just plain plastic roof, just like you get out of the box from Walthers. Spend a little time with it, cleaning up the burrs and any other casting marks. This one's not that bad, but every once in a while you'll get the dimples on the wrong side. So I'll take those down with a file. If I'm going to do something that's a little bit more like this, I'm going to carve that up at this stage. So for this we'll do a couple panels that have seen some wear. So we'll just cut that down along the line there. Score and snap. Take that down. So use the knife, just attack it with the knife. If I'm getting really aggressive, I'll take a pair of scissors to them. Get that nice shredded metal look. So just kind of whatever I need to do to get them all chewed up. So that kind of gets me where that is. So that's all that this was. The other thing I'll do if I want to thin it out, you got a pair of flat nose pliers. I'll just take the plastic in there and actually just work it out. Whoops, yeah, breaks off, too bad. Oh well, there's always more. You can glue it back together, whatever you need to do. So I'll just thin out the material a little bit just to get it, make it look a little bit more realistic. So once that's done, once I'm happy with kind of the basic shape, I set that aside and I hit it with primer. So for this stuff, I use a lot of just rattle cans. This one was just flat, light aircraft gray because it worked. This one is going to go on a structure that I'm working on. So here's the structure here. I've actually already finished one half of the roof. And as this is going to be the back side of the building and actually face the Columbia River, it's going to be a little bit heavier weathered than the front side. So that over there. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and go in, and I didn't do this on this model already, but I'm going to go ahead and take some little notches out of the metal here. And that's just to give it a little bit of variance and make it not look like it's plastic and injection molded plastic. And then what I always do is, if I don't need the seam lines on the bottom that come with it, I'll take a number 11 blade and just take those off. If I'm doing a bunch of detail work, I might come in and fill all these holes in if I think it's going to be something that's seen. But a lot of times I'll just hit it with a coat of paint. And then this one I've just roughed up a little bit with a sanding block just to give it a little bit more texture. And I've actually done that on each of these grooves on this side. Just kind of hit it with a sanding block before I painted it, just to give it a little something extra. So on with the show. Rust. Rust for me is essentially 3 colors, white and black. So I use Vallejo paints. I've used craft paints. I've used some other stuff. The Vallejo paints, I just like the way they hold on to plastics, and they're really controllable and nice and clean and whatnot. So flat earth. Flat earth. A little bit of that in here. For a while, this is the only orange I could find. Seen a few more oranges out there, but just orange. So this one's orange fire, but just any color orange. And then this one's a dark red. I've got a dark red and a flat red. And then I always just have a little bit of white sitting around and a little bit of black sitting around just in case I want to darken or lighten something. So for me, I use a variety of flat brushes, kind of depending on the size and surface I'm working on. So this has been kind of my favorite. I don't even know what the number is. This one's a 1/2 inch, or this one's, yeah, what, a 1/2 inch, I think, figured. I buy these sets at, this one's a 5/8. So this one's a 5/8, this is a 1/2. So 5/8, 1/2, and I'm assuming a 1/4. As you can see, these brushes are not taken care of, which is actually to my advantage. So I smash these brushes, I mash them, and when they get too messed up, I throw them in the trash. So these are the ones that come in those sets at the dollar store, the craft stores. Michael's, I think, has them for $10 for 150 brushes or whatever their silly deal is with coupon. So I pick up those brushes. So with rust, with this, I'm going to work from the bottom up. So like on this one here, I started with these kind of spots. So this one's going to be a little bit heavier weathered than this side. And I just start kind of just random. I mean, I'm not, so I know that about to there is where I want the rust-ish. It's very exact, super exact science here. I measure every single paint stroke is measured. So as you can see, just, man, that one looks good. That one looks good. Maybe a little bit more. Even have a solution for if you want to do less. So we'll get to that here in a bit. So just work. And the main thing is that you have one spot that's kind of the heavier part, and then it's going to lighten out. So it doesn't matter how far up you go, as long as you're spreading that out or making it lighter as you go. So this just gives me kind of an idea of what I want to do here, and I can keep going back and messing around with it. So for this one, like I said, so this one went all the way up to about here, and I kind of worked it back down. So this one's going to be a little bit more. We'll do We'll make a couple of these real. The other thing I've done before this is looked at a whole bunch of pictures online. Ask your wife about Pinterest. It's a kind of a neat program. It's a way to collect photos that you find off the internet. So instead of filling up your computer, you can just kind of fill up a cloud account with all sorts of train pictures or building pictures or you name it. There's somebody collecting photos of it. And I do a lot of my kind of online scavenger hunts on there, and I'll just save it all to Pinterest. And that way, if I want to go back and look at old barn photos, I've just got a file of old barn photos or trains or roofs or whatever it is. And you can sort it and organize it however you want. And other people can look at your stuff that you saved there, and you can upload your own photos or just, you know, borrow other people's stuff off the internet. So there's just kind of how that looks right there. All right. So that's kind of the medium rust. That's not new rust, not old rust, but somewhere in the middle. So I take the same brush. I haven't cleaned this thing once. I'm using a pretty dry brush technique. I don't even have a paper towel out yet. So just kind of rubbing this one around. So it gets kind of a nice mix of the colors. So now I'm just going to I know this is downhill, so just kind of dropping these little rust spots on here. I'll drop them, kind of dab them around the edges, because this is the new rust. I'm going to drag this down into the old rust. So far I've done this on corrugated metal, sheet metal, just finished up some stuff in O scale. So it seems to translate pretty decently into a couple of different scales. S scale would probably work. When it comes to N scale, I haven't tried anything that small yet. Probably just have to use much smaller brushes. So there's just getting a little dab, and that kind of gives you those little rust spots. And then I just kind of work over the area, just trying to get that rust to kind of show that it's running down. Put a little up here. So, all right, nothing really special, just kind of here, there, and everywhere. All right, for my older rust, I take about equal parts of the red and back to that brown that we had earlier, and trying to get super exact science here of what I'm going for. Now for this one, I want it just a little darker. So I'm going to grab just a little bit of black. I want that really rich, kind of a wine mud color. I would not drink this wine if someone poured this for me, but something around there, a little red, a little brown, that kind of deep red. So this color, I'm going to work in here, and this is the oldest rust. This is the stuff that's been here a while. So I'm going to give some little dots here and there, work on the stuff that's rusted out at the bottom. So again, just playing around with it. And this is all just scrap stuff. I mean, this one's actually I'm going to use, but I played around with all this stuff on a bunch of scrap. So my brush is pretty coated here. I'm going to grab a paper towel or two. It's good to have a few of those handy. Give that a rinse. All right. So you're probably looking at this going, wow, that doesn't look like anything at all. I don't know what we're looking at this for. So here's kind of where the next weird step happens. So you can see this has got kind of a sheen to it. So what I do is I actually come back in with white, and it's fine that it's got a little bit of that rust color in it. It's actually beneficial. So going for a new brush can actually kind of hinder you here. So I just take this white and start brushing down each little panel here. So just like little raindrops. Whee. And what this does is it's softening and blending. So the paint that's on here is still a little bit damp, not super damp, but enough that it'll blend a little bit. I mean, you can't really make a mistake, but the only thing I would warn against is going against the grain here. So you want to pick whatever way the water would be running down, and just go with the way the water's running down. So I've gotten, let's say, I don't like this panel. This panel's got way too much rust on it. So I'm just going to kind of almost blank the thing out. And then I can start all over again on that one here in a little bit. So we're going to make that a much smaller rust spot. But just like that, it's almost invisible. So just playing with this, a little bit more here, a little more there. Like I said, super not exact. All right. So I'm kind of getting to where I like it. I'm getting there. Again, for me, it's a lot of just kind of eyeballing stuff, figuring out what looks good at the moment, or what matches the photos I'm looking at. So this one here, we're gonna bring that rust back in here. We're gonna bring a little orange back in there. We're just gonna kind of take over this whole little area here. So again, just playing around with it. Just, I'm gonna brush in a little bit more here just because I want it's a little red for me. So we'll just clean that up real quick and take that down. All right, so I'll just keep playing with this, indefinitely. But to speed up time, so after the white, after my blending here, my last step that I've been incorporating, I'll just kind of show that real quick. So my last step is I've been using this, it's kind of silver, metallic paint. It's, I don't know, $1.50, something like that at the craft store, just regular craft paint. But it's got these little silver flecks in it. And since this is a metal roof, what I do is I take just ever so little, just a scotch, I guess if that's a technical term. And I'll work that. Well, didn't clean my brush enough. Hold on. Sometimes you should clean your brush because otherwise you make big old streak mess, and that's no fun. And we'll skip ahead and grab a new brush here. So again, just a tiny amount. And then we'll work that down on each of these little panels here. So again, this blends, this gives a little color, a little kick, makes it a little bit more interesting. So you can see, I don't know if it'll pick it up, but if you can see, it'll have just a little bit of a shine to it. And it's kind of hard to see even on still photos. I'm trying to take photos of the stuff and it just kind of mutes it out. But in person, if you get up close enough next to it, you can actually see it pretty decently. All right. Any questions on this method so far?
The only one that popped up has been what brand of paint, and is it water-based?
Yes, this is all Vallejo. It is all water-based paint. I've been slowly moving all my hand painting stuff that I do is either craft paint or, like I said, this Vallejo. Vallejo's most of your full service hobby shops like Tammy's, I know has it. I think like Eugene Twine Hobby has it. Places like that have just more than model trains. I know a few places carry some of the AK Interactive and some of the other paints, but small tubes, I think they're, I don't know, $4 a piece for a little tube of paint. So the other one I've been playing around with is, so same, almost kind of the same technique, but this is on corrugated metal, which is a popular material for model railroading. So you can go from kind of a light weathering, a little bit heavier there, just a little bit more there. Pretty ratted out. Almost just about disintegrated, and trash pile. So you can kind of keep messing with it as you want. Same basic technique. I do a little prep work. So this is HO scale, corrugated from Evergreen. It's only corrugated on one side. If you go out and look in the real world, usually corrugation has some sort of line or delineating mark. So like on this one here, you've got the panel, it's panels. It isn't just big chunks of huge sheets of corrugation. So I'm going to match this one up just because I already started it and I don't like measuring. So go ahead and take this. So all I'm doing here is just kind of scoring it, giving a little bit of a defined edge. And then what I'm going to do is take a number 11 blade and very carefully just kind of make a false seam here. So all I'm doing is taking a few of those little corrugations out so that I've got a seam, even though you all know I didn't actually make a seam. I didn't cut all these. I'm not going to cut all this plastic sheet up and glue it all back together, which I've seen done, and it can be done well, but I like working a little quicker than that. So for this one, I already see that I've got my lines, so I'm just going to copy the same lines that I had. We'll just start over here. On this one. So I'll just make my marks along here and just kind of go along, and this gives you an edge, gives you a little bit of texture, makes it look a little bit more realistic, and so on and so forth. So skip all that and we'll skip ahead. Hey, look, like a cooking show. It's all ready to go. Look at that. Magically in the back room, I had my elves go out and fix this for me. So this one's a little bit more ratted out. I went ahead and cut some of the seams. So this one's cut there. I went along the edge, and so I'll do that on this one here real quick. So along the bottom, whichever one I decide is the bottom, I'll go along and take little notches out. So just get along this. Makes it look more curved. Doesn't make it look such like a straight piece. So not very much, but just enough to give it a little corrugation. Maybe go back over here to the side or the corner and kind of take that corner piece in to give that, do it up again at the top, just to make it look not like plastic. So like I said, this one's already been done. And looking at corrugated iron and metals, I find it interesting because they don't really rust. They kind of rust all different ways. So you'll have panels next to each other that look brand new, and you have panels that look like they've been there 100 years. So same basic technique, just working again with the earth. Figure out which way is top. So this one's going to have just some stuffs. Gonna have a little bit. This one's gonna have a little bit here. So just kind of working around, even though that this is all one sheet, treating it like it's a bunch of individual panels that have rusted at different times. So if I do every once in a while, I will bring out a small or smaller brush if I really want to do like some rust lines. I need some water on it badly. So yeah, if you want your stuff to flow, you got to put a little water on it. So this is good for doing streaks or little runs or smaller rust spots. But again, same thing. Put that on there. We'll do a little heavier on a couple of these. We'll just rat some of these out. But main thing for me is variety makes it more believable. When it all starts looking the same, it kind of start feeling like, oh, I'm looking at a model railroad, or I'm looking at it's obviously not real. So we'll just do some spots on this. And just do a panel over here all by itself with just some rust spots. Look at that. Happy little trees. Oh, sorry, wrong show. All right. A little red. Give me that undrinkable wine. Whoop, too much. It's great about paint. Just keep mixing in colors till it looks rightish. And we're back to kind of where we're at. Okay. So again, just add some streaks in here. Play around with this a little bit. All right, gonna take my brush again, and while everything's still kind of wet, just kind of drag the paints down. And you can get your brush a little bit wet. This stuff, since it is still water soluble, you can drag it a little bit. And then do that on the other roof, but this roof we can do that a little bit with. You can just drag in a panel right there. Whoop. Oh, that's not what I want. So now we're gonna take this and do. Just playing around with it a little bit. Like I said, nothing super scientific about it. So really want those rust spots to spot out again. So I'm gonna put in some white here. Make some lighter rust spots, because that's what I want on these. Real eye catchers. Now we get some just straight up orange. Those on there. Play around a little bit. So again, just adding spots as I feel like it. Put some spots around this stuff over here, these streaks. Put some spots on that panel. Well, it doesn't matter, right? So again, we've got it kind of the way we want it. I'm gonna add a little bit more. We'll add some more dark in here. There we go. And why not? Okay. So we got all that, and now let that dry for a little bit. So as you can see on this one, I've got a spot that's kind of lighter up again. That's just from dry brushing. This is the original plastic color over here, making a mess. And then these are just paints, but you can see where I've pulled the knife down through these seams here to give it that look of the individual panels. So now we're just going to take this. Yeah, way too much. And just kind of pull. Well, happy little accidents. Let me find. Where's that brush I was using earlier? Okay, here we go. And just pulling these colors down again. So just a little dab of white. And that's just to bring things together a little bit. So it's always just a little bit of experimentation and playing around with stuff. And this one, I'm gonna really lighten this one up over here. So just kind of getting it to blend. And then if you want to go back and darken up another spot or play around with it, you can just kind of keep doing this. There's no, there's no limit. So we'll just make this merge into that. and just kind of keep playing with it till you're happy. So there's that. Like I said, this one's just kind of the demo, but this one I worked on a little bit longer. And as you can see, I've got a little bit more orange in it, kind of those lighter washes of orange. We can do that here on this one too. Let's brings it all together. So we'll just drag some of these colors down. And then, if you're not super happy with it while it's still wet, you can just kind of keep pulling at it until it does what you want it to do. So, like I said, it's just kind of an experiment playing around with those colors. So, all right. How we doing on time there, Jeff?
It's 7:45. So you've been
All right.
around just a little over 45 minutes, I think.
All right. Got any questions on those techniques?
Watching the chat, not seeing anything popping up yet.
I've got more to show, or unless you got something else there, Mr. Schultz.
What have you got to show?
We'll show this 3-tab roof.
Okay, I think I saw that one on Facebook or.
I think we put on MRH too.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
again, this is just out of the box stuff from Walthers. This one, what I'll do is I'll go along the edge and just do like I've done on all the other things. My main thing is trying to make the plastic not look like plastic. So spending a little time, not randomly doing it, but also not making it so methodical, like every 4th tab has to be pulled or anything crazy like that. So not just wildly carving in and out, but I'm going along the edge and looking at where are shingles, where aren't shingles, and just kind of making little notches and grooves there. So for this one, be a little bit more aggressive along the bottom there. So I am gonna take a file here and just kind of grind that up a little bit just for fun. The other thing I do is back to the number 11 blade. If you want to do some lifting shingles, you got that one neighbor who's got their roof that looks like it needs some work. I'll just stick this in here and pull up a couple of tabs here and there, just to give it a little bit more character. So I'll do like I've done on all the other stuff, work along the edge here and just kind of peel back these little tabs. So again, once that's prepped, underside usually prepped a little bit, I'll take that and hit that with the spray paint. So for this one, to match this just hit it with black spray paint. As you can see, I've already pulled up some shingles here, done some work on it, worked on the edges and whatnot. These roofs are a little easier. They're not having to be as exact. It's mostly just going for color. So I might use a little whiter brush here. And it's already spray painted black, but a black roof really isn't black. If you look at it close enough, it's got all different shades of browns and whatnot all over it. So what I'll do is I'll take, figure out which way is down. So again, just following the water, and I'm just dragging a pretty wet brush across this. So the rest of my techniques have been pretty dry. This one, I'm just kind of dragging a wet brush down, and that's just to give those kind of streaks and the grime and the whatnot. So I'm just going to kind of let that dry for a little bit, but you can come back in there with some lighter colors. So some lighter colors just to give it something. So this is like that 3-tab roof that's all the stuff's falling off of it and it's sun bleached. You can go in here and put some, if you've got metal structures at the top, you can throw in a little rust. Or if you have a stove pipe here that's ratted out, you can throw in a little rust here. And if you don't like it, it's like magic eraser. Whee! Look at that. all gone. And just drag my color back across it. There we go. All right, so over here, again, that's a little light. Let me just bring a little dark color back across it just for variation. There we go. So the next thing that I'll do is once I'm kind of happy with the color of the roof. So let's say, I want to do something over here real quick. So what I'll do is I'll kind of come back in and I'm just dabbing on some paint here just to give me something to play with. Okay, so doing kind of two roofs here in one. So this side over here, that's the light side, would be a roof that's not in great shape. And then this one over here is going to be just about done. So as this dries and you have just a few streaks, that's going to look more like the lower section of this roof, where it's not in bad shape, but you do have some color. You have some browns, you have some lighter colors. What I'll do on these roofs, I'll wait for things to dry, actually flip them over, and then I will dry brush with a little bit of white. And all I'm doing is just trying to get a few of the shingles to kind of pop. See, that one's still wet, So usually you have a little bit more working time, but all this is doing is just giving a little definition. Unless you're a garden railroader, no one has enough light in their layout room. So this is just giving it this little sun kiss that it needs to make it look a little bit more realistic. So same thing over here. We'll just lighten that whole thing up. So as you do that, you can see that the shingles really start to kind of pop out. I got the light side and the dark side here, Oreos or Star Wars reference, put whatever you want to do here.
Hey, Greg.
All right. Yeah.
Do you ever use weathering powders on top of your paint?
Occasionally. I have a stack of pan pastels here. So yeah, I play around with those a little bit. I use them more when I'm going for a really specific look. I think I might have used them on like this smokestack. I think I put some down, was trying to get that crustiness that you can't quite get sometimes in paint. So, and that gives it a little bit something extra. So for this one, since, Northwest, moss, rain, all that fun stuff, I just mixed up. Of course, I don't have another, Anyways, all the world's a paint palette. Okay. This is just flat green and yellow. Go Ducks. Okay, sorry. So more yellow than green is what I found. I don't care that my brush is a little dirty. So, and moss, comes in all sorts of different colors and sizes and shapes, and it dyes. And so it kind of depends on the type of year and what you're modeling. But just for fun, we'll throw a little moss on this. So we'll just say that this is the north side. And so this is, again, is just random dabbing of this wonderful color. Well, it looks pretty mossy to me. So now I'll just go back in and grab a little full green, no mix. I might even come in here and grab just a little bit of brown. See, more paper towels. Always have paper towels on hand. Okay. Yeah, a little bit of brown. Ooh, not too much brown. This guy must have got up and actually sprayed his moss. It's starting to turn already. Okay. So that's just playing around with a little bit of moss. And it's a good little something to add to your models, especially if you model, in the woods of the Northwest, or I'm working on some stuff for Astoria, which seems like there's green things growing on all sides of buildings. So it's good to have a little bit of that there. So the other thing I've done recently is to add just one more layer to it. Is I've taken, this is a 50 mix of water and matte medium. I'll just use this old roof piece. Okay. So that's just water, matte medium, white glue, works just the same. Doesn't really matter. So gonna make some, the main thing is you don't want big globs of glue on your roof. That would look gross and then it would never dry. So the thing I like with this matte medium is that it dries nice and flat and clear and whatnot. So Woodland Scenics Fine Turf. I think it's what was that whole thing about if you're not a model railroader, you're not a model railroader unless you've got like 100 of these stupid things sitting around. So just throw a little bit of fine turf on there, turf and surf, knock it off, and now we've got good old Oregon moss.
All right.
So, and that's it. That's what I got to show you for tonight.
All right. Does anybody have any other questions for Greg? Richard, you out there?
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. We can.
All right. Let's
So
see if I can figure out how to share.
and please introduce yourself.
I am Richard Kurschner. I am the secretary of this little organization. And I've been playing with 3D printing for a while. Okay, are you seeing
Yes, we
the
are.
intro slide? Okay, because I'm not seeing it on my my monitor. Good.
Complete with umlauts.
Oh, good. It needs umlauts. Everybody needs umlauts. So this presentation was originally going to be during the convention that we were going to have in April. It's that was for some reason canceled. I don't remember why, but anyhow, it's intended as an introduction to people who have never 3D printed before, have no idea what 3D printing is. So if you have ever printed anything in 3D, you're probably can go to sleep. I do want to talk about what 3D printing is, what you can do with 3D printing. There's a lot of different ways to do 3D printing. It's not just you have to go buy a printer. So there are other ways of dealing with using it. I want to talk a little bit about designs and a little bit about printers. Hopefully at the end of this, you will have an idea of what 3D printing is and how you can use it, not necessarily how someone else can or should use it, but how you can use it. Oh, crap. Wrong button all the time, wrong button. Let's try that again. So about me, I've been playing with 3D printing and design for about 3 years now, and or 5 years, and I still consider myself a neophyte. There's a lot out there I don't know. You're going to get a presentation here based on my experience, not necessarily on the reality of other people. I don't have my own printer. I use services to print my designs. I have sold my designs. Some people have actually purchased them. I've made some money doing this, and I'm comfortable around computers. Finally, I hate scratch building. So that's why I got into this, is I don't have the patience to cut little pieces of strip wood. So what is 3D printing? It's a way to spend a lot of time wasting money while still calling it model railroading. It is a whole nother hobby. 3D printing has a long history. You may not realize it, but it's been around for a long time. The 3D printer over here has a reservoir that you extrude material through these nozzles onto what's known as a build plate. That material then is cured at a high temperature. On the other hand, these 3D printers are cartridges, as much like you'd find in an inkjet printer, but they too extrude material through a printer onto a substrate. And these, in this case, it air dries, it air cures. These are, honest to goodness, 3D printers. And if you think I'm being silly by calling those 3D printers, there are 3D food printers. All of this food you see here is 3D printed. And you've probably eaten 3D printed food if you've ever had Pringles or if you've ever had Burger King onion rings. Now, it's a slightly different process, but it's still essentially 3D printing. You can do things besides food as well. You can do houses. Entire houses can be built with 3D printing. It's just, there is a machine that goes along and squirts out concrete, in this case, into known shapes, sometimes very fanciful shapes. And as you can see here, they're able to go down a path where this printer, this print head is what it would really be called, just moves down these tracks and prints out a string of tiny houses. These houses are typically built in 48 hours from start to finish. They're occupiable in 48 hours, and they cost about $10,000. Poor countries, third world countries, this could be a way of getting people better housing than some of the shacks that they're using. So that's not model railroading, I know that. What I wanted to show you though here is that 3D printing is more than just playing with little tiny toys or things you don't necessarily have laying around. It is a real process and it is used commercially. So when it comes to trains, there's a lot of different things you can get 3D printed. If you've ever gone to the Tammy's Hobbies, you will find Atlas little bags, little tiny bags of detail parts. They've got fire hydrants, they've got pallets, oxygen tanks. So you can just buy 3D printed, and they sell them as 3D printed material. That's the hot thing to do, is sell 3D printed material, even though it's, to them in a lot of cases, no different than injection molded plastic. You can buy beavers. There's an N-scale beaver. If you want, you can print out your control panels for the for your layout, for your fascia. This gentleman here, Paul, has a 2-color printer and actually prints his switch diagrams already made with the holes for the push buttons to control them. And you can see there's the holes for screwing them in. So it's just all done. You can build N-scale locomotives. You can build servo mounts for your turnouts. So you can do the things that are underneath the railroad, if that's what you want. Trust me, these work a lot better than pieces of wood that you've carved. I've done it both ways. This is a lot easier. And you can even build your scenery with 3D printing. I don't know if you'd want to, it's expensive, but you can do it. Here's one specific example. This is a loading dock in N-scale. You can see here the grooves. These grooves are a 1/2 inch deep in real life. The grooves themselves are really only 3/1000ths of an inch deep, but you can see them. Each edge along this corner here, these on both sides of the board are chamfered at a 1/2 inch. These cross members are 2 inch by 4 inch. You can't find 2x4s in N-scale normally. You have to go either cut them yourself or special order them. And if you notice real closely here, you can see that they're nut bolt washers. These are just 3/4 of an inch in diameter. You can see them once you paint them. You can't see them if you haven't painted it, but you can see them once you painted. Each one of these has on the order of, each triplet, I believe, has 20 nut bolt washer castings, or the equivalent of, I should say. And there's 9 different triplets of legs, so 180 nut bolt washer castings. I don't know anybody that's going to want to do that in N scale, actually putting on each individual casting. But with 3D printing, it's much easier to get, you do it once and it just gets repeated. If you're used to using a Northwest Short Lines chopper or the one that Micromark makes, this is the same idea in a sense. It just repeatedly does the same thing. And this is all available for under 10 bucks, plus shipping and handling. So how can you get involved with 3D printing? There's 3 different ways. You can buy the ready-made pieces like you saw from Atlas. You can design your own objects and have someone else print them. And finally, you can do like Jeff recently did and went a whole hog and bought the entire bloody printer, and he's now busily printing things madly in his garage. Or 3rd bedroom, is it?
3rd bedroom.
Yeah. So as a consumer, you don't need a printer. You don't need design skills. You just need to be able to search for things. There are companies out there, and Shapeways and Thingiverse are the 2 biggest sites, 2 most well-known sites that you can look at. They have, as my son would say, a buttload of designs. There's a lot of designs. You just have to be able to search and find them. If you don't find what you want, you can sometimes talk to the designer and have them make you something. I was chatting with somebody the other day, and within a few hours, I had 16 potbelly stoves. And if you want, you can actually go as small. Just another indication of the size here. These pigeons are N scale. That's an N scale guy, and you can see one hanging on his arm. The problem here is it's going to be expensive in the long run. Each of these is expensive. Shipping and handling can kill you if you buy one item at a time. Never buy one item at a time. Finally, the design quality and response time will vary. Shapeways, for example, can take weeks to get you a design, get it printed into your house. Sometimes it comes fairly quickly. It depends on the material you use. It depends on their particular loading. If you go with somebody besides Shapeway, again, it depends on their skills running a 3D printer. 3D printers are not necessarily easy to use. I'm hoping that Jeff will be giving us a presentation one of these days on how to set up and configure a 3D printer. Hint, hint.
Or how not to.
Yeah, lessons learned, let's call it that, an after action review. So I've talked about 2 places, 2 sites on the net, Shapeways and Thingiverse. And yes, that's the way it's actually pronounced, is Thingiverse. Shapeways is a service. They own the printers, but the designers own the designs. If you design something, you can upload it to them and they will print it for you. If you decide you want to make that design available to others, you can, and they will print it for other people as well. Your choice. You will get a cut from that sale if you sell it to somebody else. The thing about Shapeways is they support a huge variety of things you can, materials you can support in, print in. Plastics, wax if you want to make a master, and then do castings from that. So save you the money of the extra additional prints. They will print in metal, steel, copper, aluminum, gold, palladium, platinum. It prints in metal plated, and it prints in sandstone. If you want to have actually colored landscape, you can do it. You can have it shipped to you, and your block of cliffs will look exactly like the block of cliffs that you see in Colorado, for example, if you like the book cliffs in Western Colorado. Thingiverse, on the other hand, is a design repository. Somebody's made a design and they've uploaded it. It is free to anybody to use. If you want and you have a printer, you can download it and you can print it. It doesn't cost you a thing. On the other hand, vendors will also use this, and you can ask certain vendors to go, I want I want Thingiverse design number 7737. And magically in 3 days, it shows up at your door. There is no return on this work. If you upload a design, it's considered in public domain. Anybody can use it for anything they wish to use. Technically, they're not supposed to sell it for money. I'm not sure if that's necessarily followed. I don't know. I've not sent any of my designs there. Just as an example of some of what you can find on Shapeways, I searched for N-scale steam locomotive, and this was the first of 52,000 results. One problem with Shapeways is it uses an OR in its search. By default, I got everything that was N or scale or steam or locomotive. So it's going to take you some time to whittle this down, learn how to get the exact keywords you're looking for. But you can see there is a lot available here. On the other hand, Thingiverse, I used the same search criteria and got exactly 4 results. 2 of them are steam locomotives. One, I can see how they got it as a steam locomotive water tower, and I have no idea how a SD40 got in there. It just doesn't make sense to me. But the difference here is it uses an AND search mechanism. So it searched for N and scale and steam and locomotive. And I don't know, still don't know how this got in there, but it did. So you will need to use different search criteria, different search style. And I want to stress this. There is a lot of stuff out there in the world that you can find already available for you to print. You just have to know how to look for it. And sometimes that's the hardest part of finding what you want. It may be there, but you're just going to have to keep searching until you find what you're looking for. Any questions, Jeff, have come up on the chat screen yet for this?
No, we don't have any yet.
Okay. So the next way to look at this is as a designer. This is my particular focus at this point. I'm not happy with what I can find out there. I want to do my own designs. And I don't want the hassle of having a printer myself. So this is where I've gone through and how I'm approaching it. You don't need the printer, but you do need to learn how to use 3D design software. Your designs are going to be limited by your skill and patience. And you can find those designs on Thingiverse. Grab them and modify them to your heart's content. Upload them back to Thingiverse or ship them to Shapeways if you want them to print it. It will be less expensive than just going out and buying designs. If you are doing your own design, you don't pay the designer's markup. And it can also pay you money. I believe I've made at this point $7 from this, the designs that I've sold. So it's a real big moneymaker there. I haven't done a lot of advertising. I haven't done it. It's just put it up there and let people find it in the search engine. But it might cover a little bit of McDonald's money or whatever you like. The key is as you practice, as you work on your design skills, they will get better. This top design is an N-scale shanty I did. This is the very first 3D design I ever created. It's pretty basic. This one down here is my most recent version of an N-scale shanty, and you can see it has far more detail in it. I have gotten better with my designs. Some people might think I've gone too far with designs by putting on gutters, phone conduits in, well, the coal bin doesn't actually open, but haven't gotten that one yet. I'm working on having windows that will actually open in N-scale. We'll work on that. We'll see how those come out next. Again, your response time will vary just how fast Shapeways or whoever you work with will produce the part. To create your own designs, you need a computer connected to the network, the internet. You do need good screen resolution. If you're working on a 12-inch monitor that you've had since 1995 with your first Windows 95 PC, you're probably going to be frustrated. I'm right now working with twin 24-inch monitors, and it's really nice. It's quite doable this way. But I have done it on 14-inch monitors. It's doable. It's certainly, you just work on a slightly different scale, a different style, a different flow. You need a 3D modeling program, and I'll talk about those in a minute. And you need a willingness to learn and explore. It is not necessarily easy to pick these programs up. You have to learn how to use them. So, what's the best 3D design software? It depends. It depends on what it is that's easy for you to learn. It depends on what's easier for you to use. Depends on what computer you're running on. It depends on how much money you wish to spend. But the key thing it depends on is what you know already. If through your work, if you're a engineer, a civil engineer, a mechanical engineer, a circuit engineer, you probably have already used 3D or used CAD programs that you can do 3D design with. And most people work the best with the first one that they ever use. Some people will pick up different ones and find different ways of using them, but I've generally found that whatever you use first, that's your favorite. That's the one that works best for you, primarily because you've had the chance to sit and play with it longer than anything else. If you spent the same 6 months learning the second program that you did the first, you might find that one better to use ultimately, but that's a steep learning curve when you go back to the other one and already know how to do it there. So let me tell you, there is no best. They all work. They work differently, and it depends on you, how you work. They do cost money in many cases, but you can also find free ones. If you Google free 3D modeling, you will get a lot of them. Some of them are free trials, some of them are for real. I would suggest downloading them, viewing the tutorials, playing with them, learn how to use them. One of them I downloaded, I'll pick on Tinkercad. I downloaded it and didn't care for it. It didn't fit my mental model. That's just me. I know some people that swear by Fusion 360. Personally, I use SketchUp. That's been a great one for me. I do all my work that way. And I have been told specifically that SketchUp is impossible to use and cannot be used for serious design work. I disagree. It can be. It's what you learn. It's what you do best. Part of this, how to use, is the different types of the design. Some of them are line-based, some of them are shape-based. If you have ever done traditional drafting in high school, you're used to line-based, and you draw lines up, down, left, right, and you're doing fine. Shape-based is where you start with a blob and start adding and subtracting other blobs to it. Neither is right, neither is wrong. It's just whatever happens to work. Another aspect is desktop versus browser-based. The work done for a desktop is actually done on your machine. It's done and saved on your machine. If it's browser-based, it's done in a web browser and it's saved on the cloud, usually at the company whose design program you're using. Again, one's not better, one's not worse. It's just a different style. If you use a Chromebook, for example, you cannot do desktop design because you can't save really on your own box. But you can certainly do the browser design. It just depends. There are free hobbyist programs out there, and there are professional programs, and they can cost a lot of money. But if that's what you use, are most comfortable with, or if that's what you have available for work for free, go for it. There's no reason not to. Use what works best for you. As I've mentioned, SketchUp's the one I use. It's line-based. It feels just like drafting I did in high school, just like I did on my first job. It's desktop-based, and it's free. Or it used to be free, and if you look in the right place, it is still free. If you're going out and searching, go to sketchup.com, dig through their downloads, and you'll find Make 2017. It's free. It's the last free version. Doesn't cost a thing and works almost as well as the Pro version. There are things in the Pro version that and the newer versions that aren't in the 2017 version. I haven't needed them. I've been quite happy with what I've done so far. One thing that I like about it is there are user extensions. I haven't made any of those user extensions, but you can find them for free on the internet. It actually supports going out and searching. Excuse me. Two of them are absolutely necessary in my mind. I was doing crap work until I found Solid Inspector 2 and Cleanup 3. They find errors in your design, holes, mismatches, things that prevent the design from being printed. And if you don't use these frequently and often in SketchUp, you are going to have problems. You will find today a free browser-based version called My SketchUp. It's a good way to learn SketchUp. You can use it on your Chromebook, for example, but it doesn't support these extensions. It is limited, and it does not handle complex designs. This work that you see here on the interior of a power building, I could not do. I tried. It does not. I could not get a design that would accurately print. So avoid it except for your initial attempt at learning. Tinkercad. You'll notice there's a lot less information here, and that's because I don't know very much about it. I've tried it. It just didn't mentally fit with me. It is shape-based. It's browser-based. It's free. There's your download, tinkercad.com. Again, I have been told you can't do serious model railroading design in Tinkercad. Well, acquaintance on the internet has this very nice control tower that he was able to do in Tinkercad. It works. You have to learn how to use it. If you're used to using a line-based, shape-based may not mentally set well with you, and that may give you the impression you can't do it. You just have to learn how to use the techniques of the program that you're using. I'm offering a few design tips for anyone who wants to consider this. It's SketchUp centric and it's Shapeways centric. I think to some extent these will apply in most cases, but you'll find some are just absolutely Shapeways based. Always draw on full size. Make your, if you're doing a 10 by 10 shanty, draw it in your in the model in the program as 10 foot by 10 foot. You then reduce it to scale just before you ship it to the printer. That makes it a whole lot easier to design with. If you try building in HO scale or N scale, you have to then do all the conversions down to the 100th of an inch or whatever, and it's just, I find it a hassle. Keep the design clean. Use those find and repair programs frequently and often. Otherwise, you're going to find that you have so many problems you don't know where to start. If you have repetitive elements like doors and windows, call them components, save them as a design element, and you can reuse them, both in this design and in others. In this specific design, if you make a change to one of those elements, it changes all of the elements. So you can make it more and more detailed the more you work with it. You want to add, oh, I want to make add a second pane to this. Oh, I want to add a sill to this window. It just becomes, it builds, and it's then automatically replicated to all the other uses. As you can see in this example, I have 3 of the exact same windows being used here. One thing I'm showing here is segregating parts into their own print. If you're using a vendor like Shapeways that has multiple capabilities, where they have detailed capabilities as well as less detailed capabilities, the less detailed is going to be more affordable. I'll put it that way. So split the designs into parts that you can then ship to them as separate builds. In this case, the body is one particular low detail file, and these gutters and windows are high detail, and they go to a different type of printer. Volume is your enemy. Don't make the boxes solid, because you have to pay for every ounce of material you put in there. Also, if you have them built up into as one piece, you may want to flatten it out as a kit, because it might end up being a smaller total volume than as a big blob. So it's a volume issue both ways. Let's see. When you decide to do your prints, Shapeways isn't the only one that can do it. They are the largest, and I have found that in general, their prices of the ones that advertise, the ones that are easily found, they've got the best prices. I have looked at Sculpteo, I've looked at a couple of others, and their prices were all higher, always higher. I have bought through MakerBox from some designs I got off Thingiverse, and their price was fantastic. I had no problems with it. You can also look around Facebook groups. I have found another vendor through one Facebook group that is giving me a very good price. It's more competitive than Shapeways. In the next design I use. Not an endorsement or a recommendation. You find the ones that work for you. These are the ones that are known and the ones that have worked for me. But they're not the only ones. You can sometimes find local resources. If you were to Google for 3D printers, you can find local printers, and sometimes they will work with you. Sometimes they won't. You can also go to your schools. PCC, for example, one of the local PCC campuses has a 3D printer that you can use. The Beaverton City Library was setting one up just before COVID hit. So if we ever are allowed back in the library, I intend to go try them out and see how that works. Your work may have a 3D printer. Mine in our building has 2, but we're not allowed to use it. So it doesn't help much. Maybe you've got a friend like Jeff, Mr. Schultz, as I said, just got one. Maybe he'll do printouts for you. I don't know. But if you were to search in Google for Makerspace or 3D printer shop, you can end up finding a couple. And just as an example, here's a couple that popped up when I did a search. All right, so you're tired of waiting for Shapeways to get you to get the print back to you, and you're tired of paying their exorbitant print costs, and you would like to be able to try a design and immediately print it and see what you did wrong. These are all great reasons to get your own printer. You do need a printer, obviously. You probably need the ability to do 3D design, though you don't necessarily have to. You can just grab things off the internet like Thingiverse. You do need additional hardware in some cases, and you need the space. These are considered desktop tools, but they do take up room on the desktop, so they will take up part of your design area, part of your workshop area. Again, they're limited by your skill and patience, but they're also limited by the attributes of your printer. If you get a high a high detail printer, you're going to have to learn how to use more of the settings. If you're going to go with a less expensive printer, you may end up not getting exactly the designs you want. But maybe it's perfect for what you need if you're printing faceplates for your control panels and things like that. There is an upfront cost. You do have to shell out the money in order to buy it. It should have a lower per print cost though, and you don't have to pay shipping and handling, if I haven't mentioned that enough yet. And finally, the print time's quicker. If you fire off a print before you go to bed, it should be ready for you in the morning in most cases. Though I've known people that have printed entire 7-foot bridges, it took them a week or so to get that fully printed. There are different types of printers, as I mentioned before. There is the extrusion printer, which essentially is like the food printers I was showing you. There's also resin printers, which are a different style. They're laser based, and I'll talk about both of these. And there are a ton of other kind of printers, but they're usually not desktop that a hobbyist can use. If you want to dedicate half of your garage to one of these other printers, go for it. So the extrusion is the nozzle that moves across the plate, just like your Spritz cookies. The plate's lowered, and then it lays down another layer of material. It's low cost, it's relatively fast, but it can have visible layer lines, and it probably will have limited detail. You're not going to get the 2-inch window panes, mullions that I can get that I need for my N-scale windows, for example. So fast or inexpensive or detailed, pick two. There's a lot of different materials you can use, and I'm not going to go through these. I just want to give you some idea of what you can do. Anything from ABS to conductive filament. In theory, you could print an entire DC decoder, at least the circuit board for it, in theory. One thing to note is a lot of these can give off dangerous fumes if not handled right. For example, PVA. So if you decide to go with this material, just be careful and make sure you're working in a well ventilated area. The other type is called photocure or resin printer. Here it's a case that you put this build plate in this vat of resin liquid all the way down to the bottom where there's a clear window. A laser is either bounced off a mirror that rotates to essentially draw through that window into the vat, or there's a single plate here of a LCD screen, and it essentially flashes the entire window all at once. Either case, that cures one layer of the resin onto the build plate. The build plate is then raised very slightly, and it flashes it again and keeps on raising. This does have a higher accuracy, much more detailed. The problem is it's brittle and it can degrade in sunlight. And worse, this material will cure in the vat if you don't keep it clean or keep it completely dark. It's UV based material in almost all cases that I'm aware of. Again, there's a lot of different types of materials, different capabilities, and different expenses, different costs, I should say. Anything from just your run-of-the-mill resin, which looks like a clear, brittle plastic is the best way to phrase it. You can actually have something that you could implant in your body in some cases. Other cases, it's something that you could burn off for casting, like lost wax, only a resin. Again, this can have some odors. One reason I don't have this is I happen to have an enabler that would not be able to handle the odors. So I haven't gone this way. And if you don't keep it covered or don't keep it clean, emptied in between runs, the resin can cure in the vat. So what's the best 3D printer, Mr. Schultz?
It depends.
It depends. Exactly. It depends on what detail
Richard.
level. Yes?
This is Doug. One thing you did not say about the resin printers, that the liquid resin is toxic. And if you watch YouTube, there are lots of YouTube stuff on it. You have to use rubber, use nitrile gloves, and you use perhaps a mask and well ventilated, because after it's cured, it's okay, but you do not want to get this stuff on your skin, and it's quite you got to be real careful with it. That's all. That's
good. That's a good point, Doug, and you are absolutely correct. I glossed over it simply because I'm not used to using them. So, but you are right. I have never seen anybody that didn't use the gloves in their YouTube videos. Use PPE. You've got to use it. So PPE and possibly noxious fumes. It's not something I wish to get into, but others have done very well with it. So if you're willing, go for it. It's not something that's going to necessarily kill you. You just don't want to necessarily have it on you.
And the Anycubic ships with gloves and masks. It's a full COVID kit.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So anyhow, it just depends what you want to do. So there is no best. This is information I grabbed off of the website that you were seeing those example schematics of how they worked. Typical limits. And one I want to focus on is the layer thickness. You can get extrusion printers that will print anywhere a layer of 1/10 of an inch to, or 1/10 of a millimeter to 1/4 of a millimeter. In N scale, man, you may not get a layer any thinner than 1.6 inches. Better for HO scale. This may work better for HO scale detail. If you're working in G scale, for example, this is probably fine. But in N scale, it may cause you trouble. Building walls, no problem. Building mullions, going to be a problem. You can get much better detail in the resin, for example. Unsupported walls in N scale for extrusion, they need to be 6 inches thick. For the resin, they only need to be 3 inches thick, for example. The opposite problem, though, is you can build a much bigger model in N scale than you can in HO, obviously, since the bed's the same size. And extrusions have larger beds than resin printers in general. So you do have to keep track of some of the options there, some of the considerations there. These are 2 example 3D printers. Again, it's not a recommendation or endorsement, and I haven't used any. So take this with a grain of salt. This is information that I've picked up from watching friends on Facebook when we've had discussions about this. One of the most popular resin printers is the Anycubic Photon S. They list it for over $400, but you can find details. I hear Jeff picked up a steal.
They're having an anniversary sale.
They're having a what free sale?
An anniversary sale.
Ah, yes. So you can find them at good prices. There are others out there that are essentially clones of this. The Elegoo Mars is essentially the same printer. And Elegoo is coming out with a new one called the Saturn. Here it's supposed to be even better. If you want to go with a filament printer, generally people have said go with a Prusa 3D Mini. It's a kit that you build yourself and about $350, but it seems to have the best repeatability and the best detail. one thing to remember, the money is, not only do you have the upfront costs, but you do have the money for the, have to spend money on the resin, and you have to spend money on the filament. One way or the other, it's still going to cost you money on every print. It's not quite free. But definitely search around, spend some time with the groups, and learn what's the right ones for you. So the big question, should I use 3D printing? I being you, obviously. And again, it depends. If you want to create parts that aren't available anywhere else, yeah, this is the place to go. If you've got a short line, if you've got one-of-a-kind prototype that's never going to be created by anyone else, this is the way to do it. If you have parts that you can't make any other way, I have seen jewelry that simply could not be made with a standard manufacturing process because you couldn't get inside it to do the polishing work. For example, one of the best examples is you can create a whistle with a little ball inside it. You can create that with a single print because they have, you just design the ball, you design the whistle, and you put one inside the other. They will put in support material in the middle that melts away, and you've got it. There are no seams. But as an example, there are other things that are more realistic that you'd want to do. But if you can't make it any other way, this is the way to do it. If you want to create a very detailed mold master, go to all hog wild with your 3D design, get every possible inch of detail on those cast washers and bolts, have each one of them at a slightly different angle, and then have Shapeways build you one, and you can make a mold from that and do as much as you want. If you want to start making some money on the side, you can go this way. It's not a bad way of making a little bit of money. I know people that are making a lot of bit of money. They have to have a lot of designs and they have to do some advertising, but they're making some money. I won't say anybody's actually making a full income yet. If you want to create parts straight from drawings, a lot of people will create a drawing of a building, for example, and then go off and start scribing plastic to styrene to make the pieces. You don't need to do that anymore. You make the drawing and you give it to the vendor, and it comes back to you 6 weeks later or 2 weeks later, whatever the lead time is. Another one that I've realized is if you're the type that have shaking hands and you find it hard to use an X-Acto at the HO scale or N scale, you can probably go ahead at a larger scale, designing it in the 3D printer, where you can blow it up and your shaking may not be as much of a problem. So this may be a benefit for those who have certain disabilities. On the other hand, if you can do it any other way, you probably should, because it isn't cheap. It can be slow. It requires you to learn essentially another hobby. And if you're unwilling to learn, if you don't want to go through the learning curve, this isn't the way to go. Go off and buy the prints from Shapeways, but don't bother doing the 3D printing on your own. One question that keeps coming up on forums, especially the NMRA Facebook pages, is it scratch building? It absolutely is scratch building. Any part that you design yourself is considered scratch built in this case. And this applies to cry-cut printers, the laser cutters, all those things. Those are scratch built as well if you did the design. And it doesn't matter whose printer you use. If I give one of my designs to Jeff to print and he hands it back to me and I enter it in a contest, it's my design, it's my scratch build. If he prints it and enters it in a contest, it's a commercial part. And that's the key thing. It's who did the design, not who did the print. So to get started, My suggestion is to go out and look at Shapeways and Thingiverse and see what's out there. Spend some time on the Facebook groups, search for model railroading printing, 3D printing for model railroading. You'll find groups out there that you can join in and learn from them. If you do decide you want to go further and you don't already have a design tool, I'd recommend SketchUp or Tinkercad. Both are relatively easy to learn. Both are free. So go with that. If you already have a preference, go with that. The other possibility in my mind is Fusion 360, which is a free license that you have to renew every year and declare that you're a hobbyist. It's a little bit extra hassle, but it is free. And if you really want to go hog wild, especially if you're an N scale and you have the money, the space, get a resin printer. I personally don't recommend the filament printers for N scale. It's just too small. If you're in O, if you're in G, go for it. They may work for you just fine. If you're going to just print servo mounts, the filament's fine. That's it. What kind of questions have been asked? What else would you like to know? Is anybody still awake?
One question we had was that from Jeff Bunza, I thought the NMRA definition said the modeler had to do the printing. Is that no longer the case?
That is no longer the case.
So as long as the modeler does the design work, any printer can work.
Any printer can work. There is nothing about sending it, that you can't send it to Shapeways. There's nothing that says you can't send it to Jeff Schultz. And it's just because in reality, all those people are doing are pushing a button. The design work is located in that CAD file. And that's
I
where
happen to agree with you on that, but I've never seen the NMRA reverse that position.
It's been reversed. It's on their website that that's the reality.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. I happen to agree with that.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Just a little comment. Having been sort of an early interest in 3D printing back a number of years before it burst onto the hobby scene, I asked him in the contest room about it. And back then, the attitude was, if you don't build it with a X-Acto knife, it's not scratch built. That's obviously has evolved. The other comment, yes, and I'm glad you pointed that out. And the other one comment is that you were talking about $300 to $400 range. There is a resin printer that I've seen talked about on YouTube that's right around 200. And 5 years ago, when I built a filament printer kit, the kit was $1,000. So they have come down in cost dramatically in the last few years, and there's a lot of development of resins. It's a hot area for, just wait around and it'll even be better. That's all.
You're right, Doug. And it really becomes a hobby in itself in that sense, is you can use so many different types of resins that are the right ones for you, for the specific needs. And it takes time to learn the settings and to play with it and to find the right way to build it, the right angle to print it at, those kind of questions. As far as the NMRA's position, yeah, there are still people in the NMRA who think that you have to use an X-Acto knife. And if you haven't used an X-Acto knife, it isn't 3D printing. But it
isn't scratch building.
Thank you. It isn't scratch building. Fred Koch, the AP chair for the entire org, has said flat out, it is scratch building. It will take some time in some cases to get that through people's heads. One issue that I have found is they still don't know how to, they agree that it may be scratch built, but they don't know how to judge it still. Do they judge it as an individual part, or do they judge it in its entirety? I will say that I've gone around circles with a few people trying to make that call as to how to judge the construction aspect as opposed to the scratch building aspect of the points. If you were to print out an entire design, well, in just one single blob, what is it? Is that there's no assembly involved. So do you get any points for assembly or not? It's a question that will have to be answered, and it's still going to be answered. But as far as scratch building goes, everybody is, to my knowledge, everybody is understanding that it is scratch built at this point.
Yeah, I have a question, or more statement, I guess, that my limited exposure to 3D printing has been first, a fella that belonged to the Santa Fe Railway Historical and Modeling Society built a custom kit using a 3D printer to commemorate his grandfather being a locomotive engineer on the Santa Fe out of Fort Madison, Iowa, and he made the kit for that depot. And so it was involved quite a bit of work, and he presented it to the museum there in Fort Madison, and it was beautiful. If anybody's interested in pictures of it, I've got pictures. But anyway, the other exposure to it was through a club member at the Columbia Gorge. AJ Rossiter helped me make a special bolster mount for Northwest Short Line power truck under my brass Balboa doodlebug. And that motor mount to that truck was, the original motor was just a piece of crap. It didn't run well, fell apart. So I got the Northwest Short Line, but then the next problem was getting it mount to the brass frame and have it isolated so it could be DCC powered. And man, he did a beautiful job on that. And it was probably one of his first major projects with that printer. So it was, but the question I have regarding that is the material he used, I have found very difficult to attach the side frames, the original side frames, brass, coin brass side frames to that truck. Is there a particular kind of glue that would hold? It must be some kind of a glue that would need to attach to the slick surface of that. What would you? I'm not even sure what it is, whether it's resin or what it was. But that's what
I think that the microscale guys, they make glues for the engineering plastics like Delrin and whatnot that might be able to work on that. Otherwise, I think you'd be looking at an epoxy resin.
Yeah, epoxy or super glue.
Yeah, because I've tried both, I think.
You might also try sanding it to roughen up the bolster mount.
Yes.
Jeff, do you remember the topic in NMRA recently where the guys who produced the thread binders, there was a product that was used as almost like a primer for glue. Do you remember that write-up? It was a discussion topic that went on for a while. Somebody has a substance that you put on like a glue, but it's not a glue. What it is a base coat for glue. And it'll take and glue Delrin to metal, which is, I think, what the guy was after originally.
Yes.
And if you ever try and use ACC to glue metal to plastic, you find that it has no shear strength. You push it to the side and it just snaps off.
Right.
There's
That's what
apparently Loctite has Loctite 770, which is better than super glue, and they also have a plastics bonding system.
That's the thing. What was the number on the ladder?
Let's see. Loctite 770 polyolefin primer.
That's it. That's the stuff. I think it was discussed in the blog of the guy that's building the what's it, Cornell module set for display.
Okay.
The tram the tram railway with all the little ore cars being moved around. Do you remember that, Jeff?
I'm sorry, I'm Googling at the moment.
Oh, I think it was written about and discussed in the guy from Australia that has the Cornell mine display layout
Right.
that he's been blogging about forever. I think it was discussed there, but you just identified the stuff anyway.
I have a couple examples. Steve mentioned this little thing for his locomotive, but one of the Gorge members printed a Stonehenge for the Klickitat County one. First he printed an HO and it was too big. So then he printed it again in N, and little forced perspective. It looks great as up on the hillside, like it is up on the hillside outside of it's not Goldendale, but yeah,
Marysville.
Marysville.
The other example is recently there's been a thread on the SP chat group about a fellow who is creating steam dome and some other parts for the Bachmann consolidation to Harrimanize it for SPUP, I think Illinois Central, and one other road that had used Harriman designs, so that you could take that standard little steam engine and make it look a lot more like the prototype that you're modeling. Just a perfect example of doing something with 3D printing.
That the vendors won't do because they're too busy doing, the ones that more people will want. It's exactly
it's going to be a low volume thing.
Exactly.
In fact, he was doing pre-orders because he's only going to print the number of people that are interested. There'll be a very limited production.
That seems odd, to be real honest, because all it does is take up space in a computer file. So why not just keep the file around, if somebody wants it later on?
I may be misinterpreting.
Gotcha.
Initially, he wanted to maybe just wanted to gauge the market. I don't know.
He's probably wanting to figure out how much to charge for it to try to recoup his costs, because you can spend a lot of time, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of time doing these designs. I've got the one I'm currently working on is the Sears kit house 15 or 115, and so far I have spent probably 2 months of evenings equivalent on this design.
Looking gorgeous.
Thank you. But to get it there, I really hope I can make those windows operable. That's one of my goals. The other is, you start putting in the detail to the inside. There's the stairway. So.
What about the furniture?
I don't know. I'm thinking about that. That was one of the reasons I asked the gentleman for the potbelly stoves because I need stoves in here. And I was just tired of designing when I asked that. And it was funny because I said, God, I really wish I could find a potbelly stove. And 4 hours later, a guy says, hey, I was bored. Go to Shapeways. You can buy 16 for $9. Hey, I'm not
Richard,
complaining. Yes.
Richard, is there a catalog? You mentioned a catalog number. This looks an awful lot like a house my grandfather built in northern Minnesota in 1900. And I always thought it was a scratch-built house, but maybe it was a Sears kit.
If it was
there a-
1900, no, it wasn't.
1900,
Sears.
yeah.
As I understand it, Sears came out with their catalogs in 1908, but they may have used somebody's earlier. I can't remember the name of the vendor that was building before that. This is the Sears 115.
All right, thank you.
If anybody's interested in that Loctite 770, there is a link on the chat window now.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I
It
see
won't
that.
probably won't be the place you want to buy it from because I think they sell it in case lots, but
Oh,
you'll find more info about it there.
Find some
okay.
friends who want to buy it with you.
No, that's what you have a club for, right?
Mhm.
Ankle. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. All right. It is now 9 o'clock and I'm going to be looking at bed real soon. So I would like to thank all of you gentlemen, and if there's any ladies hiding behind the non-camera people, ladies as well, I would like to thank you for being here. I expect we will probably be doing this hopefully every month or a little bit within a month. As always, with all sorts of meets, we will need clinicians. So if you have something that you think might be demonstrated well in this medium, please just contact me, superintendent@2dpnr.org. And with that, does anybody have any other questions or comments?
Oh, thank you very much. This has been a good way to meet in this kind of condition here. So it's good to have at least some kind of a meeting with others that are knowledgeable.
Yeah, one thing I would like to put out is 4th Division has on a bi-weekly basis been putting out layout tours, which if you go to YouTube and search for 4th Division, you'll find them on their YouTube page. So, and NMRAX is going to do another thing this weekend on Saturday. So just NMRAX can be found on Facebook, or I believe they also simulcast on YouTube.
Jeff, I thought it was a really good thing that PNR put out the email about this as well.
Jack Hamilton basically ordered me to give him the information.
I think you ought to be ordered every month to do that.
I will try and do that.
Yeah, I saw we had some from the 4th Division.
I definitely am seeing names that I have never seen before, so I'm assuming you're from somewhere else. And I welcome you and thank you. It's actually been one of the largest meets we've had in 2nd Division in quite a while. And with that, I bid you adieu
Thanks,
until
Jeff.
the next time. Thank
Good
you
night,
very
everybody.
much.
Good night.
Night.